What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Chug Nerd YouTube channel and FAQ number 3. Let's get into your questions. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Chug Nerd YouTube channel. My name is DJ. I am a guitarist from the southwest of the UK. I've been playing guitar for about 20 years or so, and I've been doing this YouTube thing for about a year and 3 months or so at this point. I'm having an amazing time, and one little series that I wanted to start a little while ago was just an FAQ series. No kind of predetermination on how often I would do it, just as and when I got enough questions together from the comments sections of my videos that I could present you with a video. So this is episode number 3. If you go on to enjoy it, find it educational, useful, entertaining, whatever, then feel free to hit subscribe and join me on this YouTube journey. We're currently heading towards 2,000 subs, so it'll be amazing to have you along on the journey with us and see where this whole YouTube thing leads. So on my phone, I've been collecting questions over the last few weeks, and we're going to jump straight in with the first question, which comes in from @ChugRatacaster, and I'm going to apologize right at the start of this video if I get any of these usernames wrong, pronounce them incorrectly, then I apologize, but I'm doing my best. Anyway, the question asks, with your band, how long does it take roughly from riff idea to finished song to write a song? So that is an excellent question, and actually we're about to go back into the studio, so it's kind of relevant. Let me catch you up to speed. I am in a band. It's a groovecore band called HollowKin. We're pretty modern, riffy, heavy, screamy, shouty, sprinkling of melody kind of band. If you feel like checking us out, I'll leave links down below in the description so you can check us out if you'd like to. But this is an excellent question. Now, it's a fairly straightforward process, to be completely honest. I'm really fortunate to be the main songwriter within HollowKin. So generally speaking, I will write a song. Generally these days it comes off of an idea that I might have created for one of these YouTube videos. Very often these YouTube videos spark ideas for broader songs. So every now and then I'll write something, and that takes me about an hour, and I will then expand on it once I've done whatever I need to for the YouTube video, and I will then finish that song, which perhaps might take like another hour or whatever, and then I'll send it on to the boys in the band, and I'll be like, what do you think? And they'll either be into it or they won't be into it. And I can usually gauge on the vibe of what they're thinking based on their response to what I send. And if it's an overwhelmingly positive response, then we would generally take that idea further and turn it into a full song. I'm really fortunate that they really trust me with my songwriting, and they don't really have much to pull apart when it comes to what I write, in that we don't really change a huge amount very often, which I'm really humbled by, and I feel very fortunate with the boys that I've got, that they kind of trust my vision when it comes to that. So then from there I will send them the full track. Alex will learn the drums and put his own spin on it. I'll send a video to Hod so he can learn all the guitar parts, and then most importantly James will take the music and he will write all of the lyrics, melodies and all the rest of it, and that becomes the full song. Only when we then go to the studio will we start to finesse the different parts of it. So with a bunch of the songs that we've got coming up on our next single release and then album later in the year, we will start to kind of just change some of the nuances of the song. But all in all, the process is pretty straightforward. Like I said, I'm really fortunate that the boys trust me to kind of write the songs, write the riffs and all the rest of it, and if there's changes to be made, then absolutely I'm up for making changes. But very often we just kind of take the song as it is and jam through it, and it becomes a song. It's a pretty straightforward and quick process. So thank you so much for the question. Alright, question number 2 comes in from @HummerX3i. I love Hummers. If your name is anything to do with a Hummer, as in the vehicle, my absolute all-time favorite vehicle, if I won the lottery, that would be the first thing I would go out and buy. I would buy a Hummer H1, the least practical vehicle in all of the world for civilian use, but I've always loved Hummers. Anyway, the question has nothing to do with Hummers. I've gone off topic on a rant. The question is, I find 6-string baritone guitars to be way more comfortable than 7-string. Which do you prefer and why? That is an awesome question. So, me personally, I prefer 7-string guitars. I almost exclusively play 7-string guitars, certainly within HollowKin, but I generally gravitate towards 7-string guitars way more than I do 6-string guitars these days. I've had baritones, I've had 6-string baritones, I've had a few of them in my playing career over the last few years at least. Most notably, I had a PRS SE227, which was a almost 28-inch 6-string baritone. It was awesome, I absolutely loved it. The reason I prefer a 7-string guitar like this is my Solar T2.7 LM+. This has a full orchestral range on it, meaning that it's still got a standard 6-string guitar setup with that extra 7th string.
That is brand new information!
You already know, don't you?
A little bit.
But the reason why I gravitate towards that is we have parts in our songs in HollowKin, and even when I'm just kind of playing on my own, where we require that top string, that highest string, and oftentimes for example, when we're playing a song called Memorial Torment, that has that little finger tapping passage in it, which starts up on the high E string because we're in drop A, so standard tuning with the low string tuned to drop A. So that passage takes place on the 10th, 12th, 13th, 15th, and 17th fret up on that high string. Unless I've got a 6-string guitar with 24 frets, which actually at the moment I don't think I do, I can't play that passage and I have to use an octave pedal, which is fine, but in that particular song I also need a load of reverb as well, so I can't tap dance between all of those different pedals and put the octave on and get ready to play that passage at once. So for pretty much everything I write for HollowKin, it's all done on 7 strings. We have some songs with solos and kind of higher lead parts as well, and it's just easier and way more convenient for me to play that on a 7-string. Plus, I just find it more comfortable. I don't have big hands, I have pretty regular hands, but I just find a 7-string neck has a little bit more wiggle room, a little bit more room to breathe on it for your fingers and your hands to find a comfortable position. So I love baritones. I'll probably have baritones again in the future. I do enjoy playing 6 strings, and I think if I was to go down into a really low register, drop E or anything like that, then that's probably where a baritone would come in handy for me. But for general playing, I find a 7-string way more comfortable and way more practical. All right, question number 3 comes in from @DamoMayhal, and he asks, hey DJ, do you keep up to date with up and coming metal bands? If so, who is your favorite? Personally, Earn are absolutely ripping it at the moment for me. Yes, I do, and I often do that thing where I just kind of get to the end of what I want to listen to. For example, this morning in the gym I was listening to Lamb of God, and I had the settings switched on Spotify that when I finish that album it would just play other things related to like Lamb of God or what they sound like. So I'll often discover new bands that way, and I don't necessarily have anyone in particular I could kind of shout out that I'm really into at the moment, but that's how I tend to discover new like metal artists. Obviously we play with a lot of metal bands, and I'm really fortunate to be in that position where I get to experience the grassroots kind of metal scene firsthand, being in HollowKin and playing with all these amazing bands. So there's amazing bands like near us, like Struggler, who are good friends of ours, Austin Road, those guys are amazing, Held Under, they're from my hometown, amazing bands, Monochrome, people like that, they're all amazing bands. I'm fortunate that is the up and coming metal scene, and I'm kind of part of it, so I feel really fortunate in that respect. But I tend to find older music kind of comes into my life as I kind of find it through that kind of medium of Spotify. So for example, I recently discovered The Plot in You, and I just went so hard into The Plot in You that I've become a little bit obsessed with them. Equally, I didn't think they'd be my kind of thing, but Motionless in White, for some reason I really gravitated towards them this year as well. So yeah, I'm really enjoying kind of finding new things to listen to, but there's no one in particular that like I've gravitated towards recently, other than a lot of those grassroots bands like that I just mentioned. So check them out. They're on all the socials and Spotify and all the streaming platforms and everything as well. So, and that's how we can support grassroots music like that, is to go out and find those little guys. And like I said, I feel really lucky to be part of that grassroots metal scene within the UK. All right, question number 4 comes in from @riffsandbones. That is a cool username. So the question is, what settings do you use on the Soldano SLO100 plugin? I really want your epic tone. Thank you so much. That's incredibly kind of you. I'm really proud of the tone that I get on the SLO100 plugin. It's my absolute favorite plugin. And actually, do you know what? Just like I did in FAQ number 2, I'm going to do a separate video on this because this is a question that I do get from time to time about what settings I use. So I generally use 2 of the presets that I've then tweaked for my own tastes, and I think they are one of the Andrew Boehner presets, Generical, I think it is, but I have tweaked it to my own tones, and I think I generally use that one for just isolated guitar tones, and then when I do a full demo mix I will use another tone which is one of Jamie Slay's presets, which again I've tweaked to my own preferences, and then I've added a little bit of EQ in GarageBand to both of them as well. So I'm going to do a dedicated video on my tones that I use for the SLO100, and you can check that video out over the next week or so because I'll probably do it in a minute. So yeah, sorry I can't answer your question right here, but I will do a full video just for you on this one question. All right, the next question comes in from one of my homies over on Instagram. You should find me on Instagram, by the way, @chug_nerd. I'll leave links down below. And this comes in from lasombra_br. And the question is, who would you like to build your signature guitar? What features, sounds, and looks? And I mentioned in a previous video that my dream guitar, I think my dream guitar would be a Paoletti. It would be a Paoletti 6-string made of an ancient Italian cherry tree. They are absolutely stunning. However, that wouldn't really serve me in how I play guitar from a metal perspective because they aren't really designed for metal. So if I could get them to build me a 7-string, 27-inch baritone, that would be amazing, but I don't think they're going to do it. So with that being said, if I was to be speccing out a dream guitar for the purposes of what I do when it comes to playing metal, which is what I do 99.999% of the time, it would 100% be an ESP. It would be an Explorer series. It would have 7 strings. It would be 27 inches in scale length. It would probably be loaded with EMG 81.7s or 85.7s. I've been really vibing with the sound of EMGs ever since I did my EMG pickup video. You can check that out if you want to. I used my TE417 on stage recently when we did a show down in Bournemouth, and as soon as I plugged it in soundcheck, I was like, oh, it just sounds so good. I was just so in love with the sound of it. I've kind of been away from EMGs for a while, and I'm really kind of finding that they are the kind of sound that I gravitate towards. It probably have those in it. It would have all of the modern appointments you would expect. So I'd have lock-in tuners, it would have a Graphtec nut, I'd have a hip shot hardtail bridge, no silly tremolos or anything like that. Color-wise, I don't know what color I would pick. Something ridiculous and bright. Neon pink, neon yellow, lime green, something like that. Something that you don't see every day. Black guitars are fine, but I do find them a bit boring for what I do. I think they're a bit cliche, and I play on stage a lot, and it's so cool to see really bright, fun, colourful guitars, especially when they're doing ridiculous caveman riffs and you just kind of don't expect it. I love that juxtaposition of the visual kind of impact that you get. But yeah, that's probably what it would be. It would be an ESP Explorer 7-string. That would be my dream metal guitar. Final question comes in from another one of my homies over on Instagram. His name is Ben, but his username is And his question is, how much wood can a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could indeed chuck wood? And I don't know. I'm actually not sure. It's not something I've ever really thought about too much, but I'd love to know what you think about that question. So get your comments down below if you know how much wood a woodchuck chuck would chuck if a chuck would chuck woodchuck would. That would be great to know. Thank you so much for joining me, everybody. I'm going to go film a video looking at the Soldano SLO100 Neural DSP plugin so that I can show you all of my tones and answer that question that we had today. Join me another time for another FAQ. If you've got questions, please get them down in the comments section. I love having a conversation with all of you guys down there, so it'd be great to meet and catch up with you down there. I will catch up with you again in the next video. Take really good care until then, everyone. In a bit.